Hey Dr. V, my name is Cade Moran, and this is my heroic imagination presentation. So, just to start off, I hope that this is different from any other hips that you've seen. I grew up loving basketball, and I still do, but I never really got to talk about it in like a school setting, like a presentation or a project or anything like that. So, I feel like that now is like a really good time to do that. So, in this presentation, I'm just going to talk about some basketball heroes, whether they're heroes in global eyes or just my eyes. So for the first hero, obviously got to go with the inventor of basketball, James Naismith. Uh, Made in 1891. He wanted to make it so that his athletes could stay in shape even through all the cold weather. And just because of him making basketball, it's grown into a really, really popular sport 133 years later internationally. My next hero is Bill Russell. I think he's one of the biggest activists in NBA history. Um, but I think it's a little bit overshadowed just by how good he was at basketball and how celebrated he is. He had 11 NBA titles with the Boston Celtics, and the second most career rebounds of all time. Um, what he did as an activist was he helped fight racism in the 60s a lot, but mainly his whole life. And some examples of him doing this are him being in the front row of MLK's I Have a Dream speech. Um, he was the first person to boycott an NBA game with his Celtics teammates because at a hotel cafe, they were not treated right just because of the color of their skin. And he also was with Muhammad Ali at the Cleveland Summit. And as you can see here, he got the Presidential Medal of Freedom from Barack Obama. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was born as Lou Alcindor, um, and he is also an activist just like Bill Russell. So what he did was he believed that everybody should be seen the same, no matter like their race, their sexuality, their religion, etc. But just like Bill Russell, his activism was also overshadowed by his basketball talent. He made one of the most unstoppable shots in NBA history, the skyhook. He has the second most career points in history, and he also has the most MVPs ever with 6. So one of his biggest moments is also when he boycotted the 1968 Olympics because he didn't want to represent the USA at the time because they promised their citizens freedom, but at the same time they didn't give that to all of them. This is Red Auerbach. He's one of the best coaches and executives in NBA history. He won 16 NBA championships through 29 years as a head coach and executive for the Boston Celtics. Um, just like Bill Russell and Kareem, once again, his activism was a little bit overshadowed just because of how celebrated he was as a coach and executive in the NBA. What he did was he was the first coach to help influence a draft of a black player, Chuck Cooper, in 1950. Later on down the line, he helped influence the draft of Bill Russell that I just talked about in 1956. And as the head coach of the Celtics, Auerbach was the first coach to start an all African American starting five in 1964. And after that, he became the GM and he made Bill Russell the head coach of the Celtics. And Bill Russell was the first black coach in NBA history. So now we're getting on to my heroes. This is Isaiah Thomas, and he's not really a social activist or an inventor of the sport, but he's one of my personal heroes, not to be confused with the Isaiah Thomas from the 80s and 90s on the Bad Boy Pistons. Growing up a Celtics fan, I really idolized this man because he was a 5'9" point guard. So he already had the odds against him in the NBA, but he disregarded the odds and he showed that he's truly great at the sport and he got top 5 in MVP voting and he's one of my favorite players of all time. This is Marcus Smart, or as the Bostonians like to call him, Marcus. I believe that he was the epitome of a Celtic. He had lots of hustle, he had lots of heart, and he's just one of the people that you want on your team, but you do not want to play against him at all. Um, he could do anything for you, and he did it with heart all the time. And I just think that as a hero, you should aspire to do that. This is Danny Ainge and Brad Stevens. They were both very important people in the Celtics organization. Danny Ainge was an executive for a while, and he hired Brad Stevens as a coach. And now Brad Stevens is the executive person for the Boston Celtics, and he just won a ring last year. This is John Wall and Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving's on the left, John Wall's on the right. These are also two players that I grew up and I love to watch them just because they were very fun to watch and they inspired a lot of people in my generation to just play and enjoy the sport of basketball. Just the way they played was fun to watch and it was amazing. And these are my sources. Thank you for watching.